Fellow millennials, this is your president speaking, and I want you to heed this stark warning. We millennials became the biggest generation this year, and despite being the most educated, most diverse generation throughout all of history, we are still living in the financial shadows of previous generations. Please, I'll take questions later. 70% of millennials are living paycheck to paycheck. 40% of Americans under 30 said their financial situation is poor. And despite being nearly a quarter of the US population, millennials just own 3% of the country's wealth. Whereas our adversaries, the dreaded baby boomers, own 21% of the country's wealth at a similar age. This is unacceptable. But fear not, fellow millennials, for I have 4 strategies that will put us onto the right financial path to become the wealthiest generation in history.
Hey, my name is Vincent, and my goal is to teach you about personal finance through bad jokes and puns, because if there's one thing the entire education system failed all of us, it's not teaching us finance, which obviously played a huge role in making millennials one of the poorest generations in history. So let's talk about how we became the poorest generation, what's continuing to weigh us down, and most importantly, ways that you can supercharge your finances to help turn us from the poorest generation into the wealthiest. It all started in 2009, around the time the Great Recession ended, because this is when many millennials were entering the workforce for the very first time. The economy was still with the unemployment rate around 9.6%. There weren't many jobs available in the market, and the few that were paid less than before, given that there was a low supply of jobs and a high demand for them. So the lucky few millennials who actually found jobs had to settle for worse jobs early on into their career, which truly depressed their lifetime earning potential. And this is not an exaggeration, because firstly, compound interest plays a huge role over time, and with less money in the beginning, the power of compound interest is weakened. And number 2, studies show that because of the Great Recession, the average millennial lost around 13% of their earnings between 2005 and 2017, which is double the loss of what baby boomers faced during the same time period. So not only was the economy against us, we also had the psychological impact of witnessing our parents firsthand struggle financially throughout the early 2000s, which caused us to not trust the overall financial system. Think about it. Your parents, who you looked up to your entire life, who you thought were the smartest people ever, suddenly were going bankrupt because the global financial system, they failed us all.
You just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
And shortly after this, we were sent out into the world in our 20s without any sort of adequate financial education from school. But we made do with what we had, because we are the best generation after all, obviously. Life started to look a lot better because boozy brunch became a thing, avocado toast started getting more popular, and everyone was ordering silky smooth lattes. Life was good, and financially slightly better. Studies did show that it takes 10 years to recover from a setback from a recession, meaning that we were just getting ready to feel financially comfortable, and then
this is truly an unprecedented situation.
This virus doesn't discriminate. It attacks everyone.
I want every American to be prepared for the hard days that lie ahead.
The illness of 2020 led to one of the largest economic downturns since the Great Depression, where millions of people lost their jobs and entire industries, even countries, shut down. No, wait, get rid of the black screen. I'm not done yet. It gets worse. Because of shutdowns, supply chain issues, and fiscal stimulus to prop up the economy, here comes inflationary pressures that lead to rising prices of everyday goods such as oil, clothes, cars, and yes, even avocado toast. And even now, most places are still not back to normal yet, with millions are still unemployed. But wait, there's more. And here's where it gets really interesting, because there are 2 other issues that continue to keep millennials under this financial burden that appears to have no end in sight. One issue is extremely high student debt, which is 2 times higher on average than what previous generations faced. And if you ever come across a boomer on the internet, I'm sure you've heard them say, back in my day, I worked a job and was able to pay for college. Millennials are just lazy. If I did it, you should be able to do it too. But let's actually get mathematical and prove how this argument is insanely flawed. And millennials, make sure you take note, because this is the absolute best response you can give to these boomers that they'll regret all their life decisions. Salutations, boomer. According to the College Board, average college expenses at a 4-year state university was around $9,500 from 1989 to 90, adjusting for inflation. In 1989, the federal minimum wage was $3.35, which is around $7 today. If we divide 9,500 by 7, then you can pay for a year of college by working 1,357 hours at minimum wage. You can work full-time for 12 weeks in the summer for 480 hours and just work around 20 hours a week the rest of the year while going to school full-time. Doable. But now, boomer, Average college expenses are $22,000. The federal minimum wage is $7.25. But let's be generous and assume everyone can make $9 an hour. You would need to work 2,444 hours, which is the equivalent to one full-time job plus a part-time job, while you are still taking a full class load. Unfortunately, due to your boomer policies ruining the economy, college costs rose while wages didn't. Signed, fellow millennial. By the way, if you do write that to someone, please tag me on Instagram and Twitter. I love to see their reaction. The second issue is that millennials also face insanely high housing costs due to low housing supply in a housing market that hasn't fully recovered from the 2008 housing crash. The average millennial pays a median amount of $1,200 a month on housing costs, while taking home around $3,200, which means that they pay higher than the recommended 30% spend for housing, which prevents millennials from saving enough for their financial future. But despite these skyrocketing numbers, millennials are still buying homes? Wait, is this right? I guess it is. For the past 7 years, millennials have made up the largest share of homebuyers, which, if you think about it, makes sense statistically. Since millennials are getting older and moving into a house, and older generations already own their home, so they don't need to buy more. But it's not all peachy keen, because chances are these home purchases lead them into more spiraling debt on top of their student debt. So this is why we are the poorest generation in history, with less savings, more debt, and more financial anxiety than previous generations. But here's where you really need to pay close attention. I know you stuck with me for the entire backstory, thank you very much, but here is what can really change and revolutionize your life, because here are the 4 things you need to do to, well, Mr. President,
To become the wealthiest generation in history.
thank you very much. I couldn't have said it better myself. If you didn't notice about me, I worked on Wall Street for several years now, and I decided to quit in 2020 because I felt like I wasn't really doing anything, and I was just aimlessly working on Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint slides without any purpose other than to take home a paycheck every 2 weeks. And after some self-reflection, I realized that I didn't want to continue down this path anymore because I wasn't doing anything other than helping the rich get richer when there are hundreds of millions of people out there that need financial help, especially with the widening wealth gap in the past few years. So that's why I quit, and that's why I started this channel, to share every single thing that I know, all the financial secrets that I learned and I know with you guys in a fun and easy way, because, well, God knows how boring finance is. And I thought to myself, even if I can make finance a tiny bit more fun and entertaining with my terrible jokes and puns, even if I could help just one person turn their life around and improve their financial future, all of it is worth it. First, what you want to do is build a solid foundation. Now, you don't need to build a foundation before you move on to the next 3 things, but it will definitely help supercharge it. A solid foundation around personal finance is really important because this is what will allow you to make better financial decisions and will cascade and impact the rest of your life for the better. And that means truly in your mind that you understand that even $1 today can make a difference. On average, $1 saved in your 20s is the equivalent of $10 saved in your 50s. That's a 10x return. Now imagine if you saved $1,000 or $10,000 in your 20s. That's like saving $100,000 in your 50s. And I'll get into how all of this works a little bit later. When you build a solid enough foundation, then you'll start to develop a very particular set of skills.
Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
Thank you, Mr. Neeson. And these particular skills are what I learned after studying economics for 4 years. Number 2 is reduce, reuse, recycle. And no, I don't mean recycling aluminum or plastic bottles, which you should be doing, but I'm talking about your spending habits. And this one is super important. And I'm very lucky to have been raised with a very frugal mindset, especially my parents who taught me the value of money and not to spend it on frivolous things. I grew up pretty much super lower middle class, where we took a lot of ketchup packets and napkins from restaurants. I wore shoes for years until they ripped and had holes in them throughout middle school before I purchased a new one. And I guess all of this is the epitome of what every lower middle class family faces. And I'm forever grateful that they taught me these lessons very on in life. And honestly, they might have taught me too well, because now I'm even more frugal than my mom. Yes, the student has become the teacher. There are some expenses in life that you really don't need and is more of a luxury than anything else, where your life would not significantly decrease if you stop spending money there. And sure, when you do stop, it's going to be a little bit inconvenient at first because you're already used to the comfort, but eventually you will adapt because your goals are for the long-term financial future. Now, one thing I will not say is telling you what you need to stop spending on, because we all have our own priorities, our own values, and our own joy. And everything is so situational. Like that $5 latte that you buy, when you drink it, it makes you the happiest person in the world. So that value you get from spending $5 might be worth it to you. But this specific thing is the particular set of skills that you need to develop, and it's valuing things by opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is the other thing that you could have done had you not made a particular decision. For example, I have $5, I could spend it on a latte, or I could also spend that $5 on a chopped cheese sandwich from Bodega, which is amazing if you haven't tried it, it's in New York. I could also spend that $5 and invest it for my future. So the opportunity cost of $5 on a latte is basically every single thing else I can do with that $5. So once you start getting into this mindset, then you're gonna start getting on the right financial path. Now you could potentially save your way to becoming financially better off. Sure, it's better than nothing, but if you really want to supercharge your money, then you need to do the next most important thing, and that is increasing your income. Imagine if you were able to earn just a few extra $100 a month. Think about all the positives it can lead to. It can help you pay down debt ahead of schedule, help you build your investment portfolio more quickly, and a lot more. And getting more income doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get a raise from your job, which you should definitely ask for because you want to make sure your salary keeps up with inflation. It could also just be a side hustle that you work on. One of my first side hustles that I ever started was starting a local clothing brand where I put really trendy sayings like a boss with the Facebook like button on hoodies, and I sold them to people in my school. I made a Facebook page, I shared it in all the school groups, I recorded who wanted it, I collected the money so we can make a bulk order on Custom Make, which is a website that can print your designs. So your side hustle doesn't have to be super technologically advanced like developing an app or anything. It can be super small and super manual. To give you some ideas, check out this video on 9 side hustle ideas to start in 2021. Let me ask, what are you planning to do with all that extra money that you saved up and earned? Now, of course, the basic necessities are most important, such as an emergency fund, any outrageous high interest debt. But after that, the immediately first thing you should do is invest your money. It could be in anything: bonds, crypto, real estate, stock market, whatever you want. I personally prefer the stock market with the average annual return of 10%, meaning if you contribute $5,000 and not contribute anything else to it, with a rate of return of 10%, in 10 years, that investment is going to be worth nearly $13,000. And that is what makes your $1 today so much more valuable than in the future. And this is one mindset that you want to establish early on, because everything you spend money on should be advancing you in life. Whether it's going to Disney World, that is an investment into your happiness and social interaction, or investing in the stock market, that's an investment into your financial future. And listen, come here. I understand it's scary to start investing because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. You hear all these stories about market crashes, about really bad time for the market and inflation and whatnot. But there is a really easy way to get started, which is by looking into index funds, which means that you're automatically and easily investing in a bunch of different companies, which would reduce your risk significantly. Even I have a good chunk of my money into index funds, and my background is into finance, and I do full-blown research into individual stocks. Check out this video for my favorite index funds that I'm planning to hold for life. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you share this video with your millennial friends so that they can understand the situation they're in and hopefully change your lives, and then together we can be the wealthiest generation in history. Also, if you're worried about inflation, which is all over the news right now, and you want to understand how you can profit from it, check out this video over here, right here.